for the Chief Executive appointment for the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner. I'm just going to welcome the Commissioner, who unfortunately is not well today, but joining us by either Zoom or Teams, I never know which one, but welcome, Commissioner. Hope you're feeling a little better. You're probably in the best place. It's probably warmer than we are here. So welcome. If we can take any apologies for absence that you can notify us of, please.
Thank you. We have apologies from Leslie Dolby and Bob Vaughan Newton, who are both independent co-optees to the panel. Plus we have an apology from Councillor Smith, the Ashfield District Council representative.
Thank you. Thank you very much. In that case, can we move on to agenda item 2, any declarations of interest by members and officers for disclosable pecuniary interests or private interests, pecuniary or non-pecuniary? Nil registered, thank you. So this is, item 3 is for the proposed appointment of a Chief Executive Officer for the Police and Crime Commissioner herself. So we have received a paper proposing the appointment. Thank you, Commissioner. I assume you'd like to just embellish a little before we go into some questions to the candidate. The candidate has been made aware of the questions beforehand, and we'll see how we get on, whether we get through them all or not, because we've probably asked some of them previously. But over to you, Commissioner, for introducing your paper.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I think it's only right and proper that when we're recruiting and appointing such a vital role to the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner for Nottinghamshire, that of Chief Executive and Monitoring Officer, that we bring it to the panel to have your opinion. And actually, in fact, as part of the Police Reform and Social Responsibility Act, I am duty bound to do that. You can see the paper in front of you, but if I just remind you of a little bit of recent history, it doesn't seem that long since we were here before. But the reason for this is that I'm recommending that Sharon Cadell is appointed as the Chief Exec and Monitoring Officer. As you are aware, my previous CEO, substantive CEO, Kevin Dennis, left his role on the 31st of December 2021, and I'm really grateful that dates escape me, things have moved so quickly, but originally Sharon came across to help us because Kevin had come back but only part-time, so we needed a temporary assistant chief exec. And I reached out to my Police and Crime Commissioner colleagues, and Steve Turner from Cleveland was very generous in supporting and lending us Sharon. Before Sharon got that role, she did actually have a formal interview with both myself, Charlie Radford, who was the CFO at the time, and Chief Exec at the time, Kevin Dennis. But things moved quite quickly. Kevin was finishing with us at the end of December, so we started the role for a permanent chief executive on the 20th of December 2021. To do this, I formally commissioned an independent consultant who secured services of a public sector recruitment team to oversee the recruitment process. I was aware is a really small pot of people who have experience in this field, and as a new Police and Crime Commissioner, it was very important to me that I had somebody who'd got an experience of working in a Police and Crime Commissioner's office, in a senior leadership role. You'll see that the advert, which is in the pack, it was advertised on the 20th of December 2021 and closed at the end of Sunday, the 16th of January. So it was over the recommended 3 weeks. We really widely advertised this as well, because I knew that we wanted to get a good amount and a good calibre of candidates. And I was really clear that the candidate for this job would be appointed on merit. So a total of 10 applicants applied for the role, and the shortlisting procedure involved a panel of myself, ACC Steve Cooper from Notts Police, and Martin Davis, who's the Regional Director of the Probation Service, and Cindy Butts, who is the independent panel member. Of the 10 candidates, there were 3 that were very clearly more suitable than the rest. So these were invited for interview. The formal interview took place on the 28th of January 2022, and the final interview panel comprised of myself, DCC Rachel Barber from Notts Police, Martin Davis from Probation again, and Cindy Butts, the independent member, as well as the formal interview from us, where the candidates were asked to prepare a presentation and ask some really difficult, rigorous questions. Those who were interviewed were also interviewed by a stakeholder panel, which was important because that was with key stakeholders who the new chief executive would be having to work with. It was I'm really grateful to the independent consultant who facilitated the process and the recruitment agency who handled it all really well. During the interview, Sharon absolutely performed best, and it was unanimously decided by the panel comprising of myself, Rachel Barber and Martin Davis and Cindy, that she'd be the right person to fit in our office. Sharon's CV speaks for itself. She's got all the necessary qualifications for the roles, lots of public sector employment experience, and she's also got experience of working in other police and crime commission with other police and crime commissioners, which for me was really important. And I'm confident that Sharon Cadell has the necessary skills, knowledge and experience to absolutely excel in the role of Chief Executive and Monitoring Officer within my office. I'll be grateful for your thoughts on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you. We have got some questions, 1 or 2 for yourself, although I think you've partly covered those, but I'll ask them nevertheless. And then several questions from panel members to the candidate. So if I could kick off, I'll put my 2 together because they're kind of linked together. And you've touched on it, I appreciate that. First of all, set out the reasons why Mrs. Cadell was the preferred candidate, but importantly, and I think for importance for the public, the panel notes that Mrs. Cadell became a substantive employee of the Nottinghamshire Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner 1st of February 2022. Yes. And you're also aware of the timelines for the recruitment post. So I guess the question is, what assurance do you have for the panel that the recruitment exercise wasn't a done deal?
Absolutely. May I just pick up on the 1st of February date first? Steve Turner and Lisa. Steve Turner is the PCC in Cleveland, and Lisa Oldroyd is the acting chief exec. They took a real risk by letting me borrow Sharon, because they were still paying her, and they were actually when we said that we needed Sharon longer, because the original deal was only ever going to be till February, they actually asked if we could transfer Sharon across to us from the 1st of February, because if you remember, we did agree that it wasn't a done deal that Sharon was going to get the job, but we did have a cushion of 3 months for whoever was going to be appointed. There could have been two chief execs running along the side. I mean, there's plenty to do in my office, especially with the roles and responsibilities work that Sharon's been taking lead on, that I would have been happy for Sharon to carry on working with us for 3 months after the 1st of February, if she hadn't got the role of substantive chief exec. So that was why the date changed across. Originally, I think it was the 14th of February, but it was cleaner to do it from the 1st of February. That's what when we asked for an extension, they wouldn't extend the secondment. So we just did a clean break of starting Sharon on a short-term contract with us from the 1st of February. It wasn't a done deal. I needed to cast the net to find out who was the right person for our office, which is why I took it all very seriously. And we did have strong candidates, and actually one other person was appointable, but we all agreed that for our office, Sharon was the best fit. And one of the reasons for that is Sharon's got really good pastoral care. We've gone through a lot of change in our office, and how she's brought the team together is exceptional. You know, we've had a real rocky ship since I started. You know, within a few weeks, poor Kevin had gone off poorly. A lot of change. We've got this big roles and responsibility, and the team spirit you see in our office right now, I have to say a lot of that is due to the excellent morale boosting work that Sharon's done. So and when we asked Sharon lots of questions, it was probably harder for Sharon actually, because we know what she's doing with us. So she was giving us lots of examples of stuff she'd done elsewhere, and she was giving us real tangible examples of work that she'd done and evidence it, which is work I want to have done in my office.
Thank you, Commissioner. I mean, you touched on earlier, didn't you, that it was a much smaller pool than you were expecting. In one sense, I don't think I was surprised really, because it's a fairly unique role.
Yes.
So it's encouraging that to hear that you'd got actually 2 appointable candidates.
Yes.
And you know, obviously a preferred one, but the fact that you attracted 2 appointable candidates is extremely heartening, and thank you for that. Going to hand over to Councillor Ellis. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Khan.
Can I ask a supplementary on just what you just asked? Yeah, thank you. It was just the Commissioner said that normally there's a 3 weeks minimum period for going out to advertise, but obviously you say in the papers it says that you advertise from Monday the 20th of December, and you say you've done it for a longer period. When I've actually looked at the dates, this is over a festive period of Christmas, New Year. So if you take away the bank holidays, the working kind of days, it's actually only 15 working days. So the question kind of from me is, do you think that when people are now from COVID and everything, and this is probably the first Christmas people can spend with their families and New Year, well, do you think that was actually long enough?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Khan. I have to say, all the interested people came really quickly. People were watching this post. I think there was only one very late entry. The majority of people got the CV in before Christmas, and actually, and indeed, the ones that were shortlisted got their CV in before Christmas.
Thank you, Commissioner. Did you want to come back, Councillor Khan? No? Okay, thank you. Councillor Ellis, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, Commissioner, you advertised this post on a reduced salary compared to the previous post holder, and in reply to the questions on the budget, you mentioned that you realigned the role and divested some of the broad responsibilities. Can you just tell us how that's going to work?
I can tell you exactly how it's going to work once we get the roles and responsibilities reviewed to the next stage, Councillor. At the moment, I'm very aware we're still in that consultation process with our team. But if I could give you assurance that the new role was graded, it was matched with most similar roles. We actually used an external company to do that, to check that it was at the right financial level. And I think the fact that we had so much interest in the role proves that we pitched it rightly.
So presumably the heads of function that you're talking about in the reply to the budget question will be at a higher grade than the current equivalents.
Can we talk about that when we get to the next stage, the roles and responsibilities, please?
I think we've got a slight dilemma here, because I can understand that you're still in the middle of a consultation and very cautious about what information you want to release. I suppose it's seeking if Councillor Ellis feels reassured in the answer that you've just given, or whether he'd like to come back and just maybe there's a way of getting some information in a different way.
I think that's the answer I'm going to get, Chair. So
Could I possibly come in, because I'm quite close to the roles and responsibilities review. So I don't think we can reveal the detail in terms of grading and salaries and so on at this stage. What I can give you assurance of is that the functions, the powers, the duties that Chief Executive is generally responsible for overseeing, and I think I've spoken about this previously, is that we did have quite a flat structure and we've created much more hierarchy. So yes, there is a distribution of responsibility within the heads of function.
Thank you, Commissioner. Those were the general questions we were addressing to your good self. We now turn to the candidate, and could I invite Councillor Inglis, please?
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Sharon. Now you spent some time as the temporary Chief Executive. Perhaps you could tell us what you understand of the crime context in Nottinghamshire and what effect that experience has had on your understanding. And perhaps you could reflect that back to your comments on the previous meeting for your temporary appointment.
So I think my knowledge, my understanding of the Nottingham and Nottinghamshire area is constantly growing, and you know, I'm by no means there yet. You know, and I still need to kind of get out there and continue to engage and continue to meet the key stakeholders as well. But it's certainly my knowledge of kind of the different districts and so on. I've got much more familiarity around that, certainly in terms of the local challenges. So that understanding of the vulnerability issues in the different districts overlaid with kind of poverty and deprivation issues as well. The combination of urban crime versus rural crime as well. And you will know this much better than I do, but there is a real mixed bag here in the Nottinghamshire Police Force area as well. I think what I can say with confidence is that I do now have a much better understanding of the partnerships, albeit I wouldn't want to rest on my laurels and say I know it all. I think one of the things since I spoke last time is I've got a much more keen awareness of legacy issues that impact on policing and crime issues. So, for instance, the independent inquiry into child sex abuse and kind of some of the survivor issues with which our office has been concerned, particularly in relation to providing services to them, and in terms of the holding to account piece as well. So I do have much richer understanding of that as well. And as I say, I'm starting to engage. I think another area that I can give you kind of just more assurance that I've got a better understanding of that as well is just in terms of concerns, historical concerns relating to race disproportionality as well. And some of those continue to exist today. So, you know, there's a number of kind of you know, there's certainly lots of diversity, lots of different cultures in the area, and you know, we are making kind of significant efforts in terms of engaging with different groups in terms of really getting an understanding about how we best engage.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, I know you've only been in a short period of time, but you know, you're grasping the nettle, and it's a good start. Thank you.
Trying, thank you.
When you were confirmed as the interim chief executive, our commissioner said that her priorities were for you to work on those that were contained in the police and crime plan, which we've seen today, with an emphasis on work around violence against women and girls. Can you tell us the progress you've made so far against those priority areas? And can you tell us any other objectives you've achieved whilst you've been in post as an interim?
Yes, so in terms of the violence against women and girls strategy, I have already held a meeting with key stakeholders in the area, and I've continued to liaise closely with the police because there's a whole piece of work there in terms of the police getting their house in order as well. So what we're doing around a county-wide partnership violence against women and girls strategy has to align if we're going to hold the force to account on that. So I have been working quite closely in relation to delivering that priority. I think there's other things as well which are probably the layer beneath that in terms of the commissioning, the community engagement and the business delivery priorities and the general governance of the office as well. So those are not sort of tangible priorities necessarily that I could hand on heart say that's what I've delivered, but it's about the mechanism that makes that delivery possible, if I can put it that way. I think more than anything, it's for me, it's about getting our engine room right, you know, and there's been an awful lot of work gone on since well before Christmas in terms of getting that governance right. And one of those things does include that we had quite a sudden absence in the Chief Finance Officer role, which by law we have to have that fulfilled. So I had to work at pace in terms of stabilising that governance piece within our office and ensuring, you know, in my role as interim monitoring officer that Commissioner had that particular post in place, particularly with things like precept and budget coming up.
I mean, if I could just say, you know, I think that the emphasis on violence against women and girls is absolutely right. I would really like to see good governance and progress in relation to the prevention side of domestic and sexual violence, and also really robust measures on the repeat incidences of especially domestic violence. And you're right in saying the police are absolutely crucial as far as improving those figures and improving conviction rates as well. And I appreciate we don't have control over the courts and control over the charging, but it seems that there's something systematic not working well. So I really look forward to seeing progress on those matters. I don't know if anyone wants to come in on that, but I do have another question as well.
Thank you, Linda. Anyone got a follow-up on that particular point? If not, thank you. Move on then, Linda, to your next question.
So in the substantive post hold, you will need to develop long-term working relationships with all of the key stakeholders. Can you tell us your experience of building and maintaining positive relationships with a wide range of stakeholders and colleagues? How do you plan to build relationships with other OPCC chief executives within the region and highlight some potential opportunities that you'll seek to explore with them?
Okay, so I think it's helpful here in terms of my professional experience within police and crime commissioners' officers, because this is not my first outing in terms of going to completely new area where I don't have a network of colleagues. What I do have, and which I believe has stood me in good stead, is you know, a passionate commitment to community safety, to ensuring criminal justice, and I think I've spoken previously in terms of my particular passion to tackle violence against women and girls as well. So those are all inroads. I'm from local authority background, but I've also worked in third sector as well. So I have quite a good awareness of how local landscapes and how commissioning partners tend to operate anyway. It is challenging because Nottinghamshire's big and has the district councils and so on. I'm gradually getting round them as well. So yes, it is challenging, and I think I'm just bringing my experience to bear. I think just in terms of assurance, in respect of that, I was trying to recall this last night when I was reading through these questions again, and I'm not aware that I've ever failed in terms of building a relationship with the stakeholder as well. You know, and I've amassed quite a good reputation over the years as a result of it. So I think it's about common cause, finding common cause. Touch wood. I think you mentioned a couple of other items there in terms of engagement with other OPCC chief executives. So I was already an active member of the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners Chief Executives group. So that and it's got all the 43 forces plus a few more besides. So it's got City of London, for instance. It's got PSNI in there, and it's got a chief executive of the Garda in Ireland. That is, and sometimes we've got people from Jersey and Channel Islands as well. That is an excellent peer forum in terms of just knowledge sharing, you know, just picking up on good practice and so on, and putting problems out there as well. Yes, I am new to the area, but within my first days, I was kind of going along to regional meetings. Fortunately, I did know some of the characters from the work that I've done nationally and in other areas as well. So I was able to make introductions, and I've had one-to-ones with almost all of them in the time that I've been here as well. There's just one remaining. So, you know, and I've already sought advice and information off them as well, you know, so, and they have from me. So that doesn't worry too much. I believe I've established quite good communication channels there. Potential collaborations is really interesting because I actually think Police and Crime Commissioners' offices are quite small entities, and, you know, some part of the things that we are trying to address within the review is some of the problems with resilience that we didn't have previously. And it strikes me that there are opportunities in terms of that resilience as well, that we could potentially have some mutual aid arrangements with other Police and Crime Commissioners' offices around. So, for instance, if a chief executive was abstracted, you know, we have responsibility in terms of police complaints, reviews of them going forward, and more besides.
On that particular question? If not, then can I invite Mrs. Harding? Thank you.
Good afternoon. You have actually mentioned that you have worked with various police and crime panels. And my question is, how would you define the relationship between the Chief Executive of the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner and the panel? And how will you seek to develop this relationship? And I'd just like to add, I've never asked this question before because it's never cropped up before. So this is going to be an interesting answer.
Okay. So for me, there's two layers to this. One, which is the formal relationship that's set out within the legislation, the Police Reform Social Responsibility Act 2011, which sets up that governance piece. You know, you as a panel are here to hold the Police and Crime Commissioner to account, who in turn holds the Chief Constable to account. So I think there's, and as Chair referred to, there's a point around the scrutiny and support work that you as a panel do, that requires me to engage as functionally as I possibly can with the Secretariat, but also quite regularly with the Chair and Vice Chair as well, so that I can facilitate that transparency piece, that all that scrutiny and support work that you as a panel want to do, and rightly kind of hold the Commissioner to account at meetings like this. There's a softer relationship that sits behind that, I think, which is about just kind of, you know, developing work programmes, really gaining an understanding of things that you would find of interest to enable you to hold the Commissioner to account, but also in terms of the support and scrutiny of her activities as well. So for me, it's very much about the regular dialogue that I would have with the likes of Joe, Peter and Keith, but also with Chair and Vice Chair as well, and ensuring that we're docking in quite regularly and that we've got a good dialogic approach to ensuring that these happen as smoothly as they possibly can.
Thank you very much.
Did you want to come back, Mrs. Hardy?
No, that's fine.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Ellis, thank you.
Thank you. I suppose my question relates back to the discussion we had earlier on. So you're making me the same answer about not being able to tell me some of this. But we've had previous comments from the Commission about needing to make efficiencies, and there's comment in the budget papers that we discussed earlier on. But there's also an increased spending for the Commissioner's office in the summary investments. So do you expect to be making further efficiencies, and if so, how?
Yes, so I think I can answer this. I think this is public money at the end of the day, and I'm conscious as of head of paid service that we should be as efficient as we possibly can be, and I'm quite committed to that. I think I've spoken previously about the office requires some updating in terms of its processes and its mechanisms, and I think that's where we could be making efficiencies in future. So, for instance, we have got a lot of bureaucracy, which we need to make more lean. And there's the learning from COVID as well, and I think this was kind of in the budget papers as well. We've learned really big lessons from that, and really need to mainstream a lot of that in terms of our working practices, things like agile working policies, that mix between kind of digital and having people in office in person as well, and how we convene our meetings and so on. There's a lot of work to do, and I'm sure I'll be busy over the next couple of years, but there are certainly things in the back office where I think, in terms of the staff investment that we're getting, it's incumbent upon us, and I will lead the charge on this in terms of making sure we polish everything off and make sure that things are working as efficiently as they possibly can be.
Thank you.
Thanks. Nottingham and Nottinghamshire have been named as one of the first 9 areas in England invited to seek a devolution deal. As part of that, a link with the Commissioner's office has been identified around the young people's theme, including the ongoing funding of youth work and training, and the potential for accessing jointly other funding strands such as violence against women and girls and safer streets. How do you see this impacting on the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner, and what value can you bring to this work?
I'm not sure I can answer the impact bit at the present time, because I know the paper came out just days ago, the white paper on levelling up and so on. I am aware of the vision paper that's been developed by county and all the participating local authorities as well. And I've seen on their secondary list of ambitions, the commitments around youth services, support to vulnerable people, community safety and so on. So it's difficult to say in terms of impact, but I think generally I see lots of opportunities there. There's lots of synergies that I think we can kind of be getting hold of, those kinds of, it's that common ground basically. It's that kind of desire to provide, a better sort of economic deal and a better future for young people, completely aligns with our police and crime plan ambitions to divert people from criminality and for them to lead lead better lives, free from crime, free from victimisation, and so on. So I think there's lots of work that we could be doing in terms of that structure as that comes forward. Be that through things like employment offers that we could link up with our youth diversion work. Certainly, I see synergies in terms of digital technology. So I know that there's quite a lot of ambitions in terms of, the smart city status. And my reading of that is that aligns so closely with kind of those safer streets ambitions, that we want somewhere that's safe to work, that's pleasure to work, that's kind of vibrant to work in as well. So I think those are all the ambitions that we share in terms of, people feeling safer at night, for instance, and, kind of people just generally having perceptions of safety in their area. And I think, I could go on, but I think there's, that digital offer that's kind of included within the vision plan. It seems to me there's opportunities there around kind of detection of crime, which knits in quite nicely with our CCTV and DNPR work that we've committed to as an office. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sharon. You've patiently answered all the questions that we felt we wanted to ask you this afternoon. So it's now our turn to quiver and ask if you've got any questions of the panel.
I have just one, and how will the panel support me to be the best chief executive I can be in the Nottinghamshire Police Force area?
Thank you for that very interesting question. I'm looking around the room. Councillor Woodings is a volunteer.
Well, I suppose the answer is we will constructively challenge, monitor and scrutinise and, help you to be the best OPCC chief executive that you can be. We'll do our job in, a polite and respectful way, and we are here really to represent our constituents and the bodies that we represent. So we will have some tough questions at times, but it's done in the spirit of wanting to improve the policing situation and the feeling of safety that the public have. So, I would just say don't ever take it personally, and I hope it doesn't ever come to that. I just think we need to have, a better relationship in public life, but we do need to hold each other to account, and I think that's a good thing actually. So yes, constructive criticism is and helpful feedback and comments, I suppose, is how we will support you to as I say, do a really good job in this new role for you, and I hope you've got your feet under the table whilst you're interim. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think openness and transparency. Openness in that we've not known each other for very long, but the openness is that if you feel something's not right, you can either pick up a phone to Joe or pick up a phone to me. In the sense that if there's something going wrong, then we collectively would want to put it right. But it's about being able to have that conversation that is not necessarily in the chamber here, but probably over a cup of coffee at one of those delightful coffee shops, so that you can just talk frankly and openly and transparency. At the end of the day, we are all here, either independent members or elected members, because we are passionate about this county and about the safety, the reputation of Nottinghamshire. That's what we're all here for. We're wedded to this wonderful county and this wonderful city, and we hope if you're appointed that you'll be wedded to it too. Hope I've represented panel members on that, but please feel free to make your own comments. If no other comments, then can I start by asking that the committee be invited to resolve that the public be excluded for the remainder of the meeting on the grounds that the discussions are likely to involve disclosure of exempt information described in Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, and the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. All those in favour? Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Commissioner. Hope you're soon well, and hopefully the Vice Chair and I will be able to meet up with you fairly soon for a cup of coffee. Take care.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
Sharon.
much.